Saturday, January 31st of 2015. It was the day before the Super Bowl. I was less than 5 minutes away from my house on my way to work, and I got in a car accident right about there. That car accident has changed my life forever, and I'm finally telling the story of what happened and all the things that have followed since. On January 31st, 2015, I got into a car accident, and I haven't really been able to talk about it online because I've been in a lawsuit since then. However, last year, in March of 2019, the lawsuit ended, and now I'm free to tell my story. This is a story that has parts or chapters, if you will. What exactly happened, the days following, my treatment, doctor's appointments, visits, all that fun stuff, my last 5 years, and where I am today. Chapter 1. What happened? The thing everybody wants to know. The thing that I've whittled down to an elevator pitch, but I'm gonna give you the full details today. I got into a car accident, duh, as if you didn't already know that. It was the day before the Super Bowl, and I only remember that it was the day before the Super Bowl because the Pats were playing, and I was excited to watch them, but I had work the next day, and I was on my way to work. It was around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I was about 5 minutes from home. Honestly, that's probably exaggerating. I was probably about 2 minutes from home, driving down a main road in my town that had 2 lanes of traffic on each side and a suicide merging lane in the center. So I was the first car of the little traffic there was on that street. So I'm driving down the road and I see a large Ford F-150, it was a Comcast truck, merging into the suicide lane to seemingly turn into the apartments that were on my right-hand side. I kept driving, but I saw that he was going kind of fast, so I honked my horn. Then I saw that he wasn't actually going into the suicide lane. He was trying to dodge diagonally across 4 lanes of traffic, not including the suicide lane. From that point, I'm laying on my horn. I hit my brakes, but it's too late. And that whole thing I just described to you there happened in a matter of like 3 seconds. It took longer to describe it than it happened. I saw him coming, laid on the horn, saw that he wasn't just gonna wait, he was gonna try to cheat traffic, braked, and before I knew it, my car hit the side of his truck, and his truck rolled completely over, and mine stopped and compacted in like a soda can and a trash compactor. As soon as my car stopped and I realized I was alive, I took the keys out of the ignition and threw them on the ground because the first thought in my head was my car was about to explode like in an action movie. So I threw the keys on the ground and ran out of the car and turned around to see the aftermath of what had happened, and I screamed. I was devastated. I cried like a mother who had just lost her child. I hope nobody ever hears me scream like that again, because it was like my soul was destroyed on the inside of me. Is the only thing that I can relate it to, because that's what it felt like, because I had no clue what had just happened. I saw that my car was totaled, and the first thing I thought of was, my car is totaled, my car, and people were rushing out of the apartment complex saying, forget about the car, are you okay? And all I could think of was money, which is crappy, but I could only think of how my car was completely destroyed. I saw the truck on its side and then thought that somebody's dead now. Luckily, he crawled out of the side of the car without a scratch on him. I'll just go ahead and tell you now, he crawled out of the side of the truck like it was a jungle gym and walked away completely fine, which is funny how the people who cause the accidents are never the ones that really get hurt. But anyway, somebody who was there had called 911, and the first phone call that I made was, I think, to my work, calling and telling them that I had just gotten in a major car accident. And the first thing my manager responded with was, so are you not coming in today? The next phone call I made, I feel like, was my mom. I think I called work first and then my mom because I needed to calm down before I called my mom. Maybe I called her first. I honestly don't remember. It was 5 years ago. I hope to never again have to make a phone call like that, because nothing is worse than hearing the voice of your mother trembling on the other side of the phone while you tell her you were just in a car accident and you're okay, but she needs to come get you, because I could hear in her voice that she couldn't tell if I was just lying to not worry her or what, but the trembling voice of a mother while her only child tells her that she just got in a really bad car accident is the last thing I ever want to hear. It's heart-wrenching. My car got taken away, his car got taken away. My car was totaled, as you could imagine, and the cops came, the ambulance, the firefighters, they all came, and they asked if I wanted to get taken away in an ambulance. And I said no, because I thought of the money first. When they asked me, like, if I was in any pain or anything like that, because they do that whole checkup on you, obviously, when you get in a car accident like that, my wrists, my shoulders, and my knees were the things in pain. When it came to my wrists and shoulders, holding onto the steering wheel so tight kind of jammed my whole arm, and that was really sore. It was mainly my wrists, honestly, were the sorest out of those. And when it came to my legs, my knees had actually slammed into the underneath of the dashboard of the car, and that's where the knee pain was coming from. Luckily, I had no head or neck or back pain, which I'm so thankful for this day, because concussions are something you do not want to mess with. And I said I didn't need an ambulance, and if I needed to go to the hospital, my mom could just take me to urgent care or the emergency room. So as my car was towed off in one direction, I drove off in the other direction with my mom, and we went home. There are a few things I think about when I think about that day. First of all, I had done my hair all pretty, and I had taken a whole bunch of like selfies and pictures of myself in my driveway before I'd left, because I thought I looked really cute. And when I looked back at those pictures for the first time, I cried, because I saw a person who no longer existed, which, yeah, it was hard to look at. And secondly, on the day of the accident, the cop who showed up, like, one of the first things out of his mouth was, "You're covered," because not only was the other guy in the wrong, he had also broken the law, and he was like, "Trust me, you're good. Don't worry about, like, was this your fault? Was it his fault? He's 100% in the wrong." So that was a peace of mind from the beginning, I guess. And thirdly, and kind of funny looking back on it, the only witness to the accident was an extremely intoxicated man on the front porch of an apartment complex. So that was great for me. Chapter 2. The time following the accident. Like I said, I didn't take an ambulance the day of the accident because money was the first thing that came into my head. But the next day, when my mom asked how I was feeling, and I still said that I had pain in my knees and my shoulders and my wrists, she was like, "Let's not risk it, let's go to urgent care." And I would have gone to a doctor, but one, it was Sunday, and two, I didn't have a primary care doctor, so urgent care was my doctor. And the thing that will always stick out in my mind on that first doctor's visit is they checked out my shoulders, which had felt better by this time. My wrists were still a little sore. I still had no back or neck or head problems, but my knees were still bothering me. And when I told the doctor there that I was having pain in both of my knees, she wanted to take an x-ray, but would only listen to me when it came to my right knee. So anytime I would say, "Yeah, both of my knees, XYZ, I'm having pain here on my left knee and pain here on my right knee," it's almost like she didn't want to listen to the fact that I was having pain in my left knee and ignored it. And that first doctor's visit, I did not have my left knee examined at all, which was always really frustrating, of course, but odd to me. From that day, she recommended me to go to a different branch of the same brand of urgent care because they had a specialist of sorts over there that he could take a look at my x-rays. So made an appointment, went to that guy, and let him know that the previous doctor did not want to hear anything about my left knee. And from there, he took x-rays, all the ones that essentially she didn't do on my first visit. And by the time I had gotten that doctor's appointment, my wrists had felt totally normal. My shoulders were pain-free. So it was really just a focus on my knees at this point. So at that point is when I got referred to my first specialist. And this guy was great. Loved him. Sweet old man. And he, right off the bat, saw that the findings that the previous doctor had didn't match up with the x-rays, which is why you go to specialists, I guess, because the first doctor said that I had a cracked kneecap. However, my first specialist said that that was not apparent through the x-rays that he took. So that's fun. Through his seeing me and all that stuff, he recommended me to go to physical therapy, and that's the first time I went to physical therapy. Went to this physical therapist, and somewhere along the way, I think this first specialist said he wanted to go to a second specialist, and from there my lawyer stepped in, because somewhere around here I had lawyered up, and he had a specialist who he had worked with in the past. So he said, "How about you just go to him?" Cool. So I go to this guy. So this doctor, who we're gonna call Dr. Jerk, and you'll learn why in a second. Dr. Jerk lived up to his name because the first and only appointment I ever had with him, I left in tears because he did not listen to me. He proceeded to scold me, tell me I was overreacting, that I could never do theater or dance again, and I should stop any type of physical movement, and I would never get better, so there's no point in trying, and physical therapy was a waste of time. Then left the room without me really getting to ask any questions. And I burst into tears, and I remember the receptionist when I left, and she said, "Do you want to book a follow-up appointment?" And I was in tears, and I said, "Absolutely not." And she said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No." And I left. And that was the last time I ever saw Dr. Jerk again. And when I came back to my lawyer, I made sure to tell him of what had happened. And when I went back to my first specialist, he said, "How about this time I send you to this guy I actually work with? He's great. He's one of the best orthopedic doctors, joint doctors, whatever, in Northern California." So I go to him, and then that's when I start meeting Dr. Wonderful. And Dr. Wonderful very much lived up to his name, and he was the doctor that I had through the rest of my time under this lawsuit, and he was the last doctor that I've had. Dr. Wonderful was so wonderful because he listened to me. He wanted to try different things. He didn't want to go to extreme measures like surgery right away. He issued me another round of physical therapy, and then eventually later I got more physical therapy. And for like the last 5 years, I've seen him like once every 3 months, but that stopped about a year ago when the lawsuit ended. So I guess that's where the path ends of doctors. I finally stopped at Dr. Wonderful. Chapter 3, my treatments, my diagnosis, and doctor's visits. So what is wrong with me? What is the cause of the last 5 years of pain? After 5 different doctors, I've been diagnosed, misdiagnosed, and diagnosed all over again. And pretty much it boils down to this. I have bilateral prepatellar bursitis and IT band syndrome. Bilateral prepatellar bursitis, which is also a mouthful, is pretty much that the bursa, which are like jelly-filled sacs that go on your joints. It sounds really gross, but they are continuously inflamed. They get inflamed from injury or constant irritation. So like if you're on your knees a lot, and mine are just constantly inflamed and they fill with liquid, and then that causes me a lot of pain all over my knees. And my hips. IT band syndrome is that the IT band, which goes from the outside of your hip to the outside of your knee, is just super tight, and it's so tight that actually if I lay on my side with my legs on top of each other, they don't touch because of how tight that band is. Now you might have heard me say that I have pain in my hips now too, which, where did that come from? Only my knees got injured in the accident. Well, fun thing, through what Mr. Wonderful thinks happened, is that I was compensating for the pain in my knees, and I started altering the way that I walked. And because of that, I then started getting pain in my hips. So the knees were from the accident, the hips were from the aftermath, which is just fantastic. When it comes to the IT band, you can stretch it out, but it supposedly has like the consistency of concrete or something like that, so it's pretty much very hard and very painful to get loose. So over the last 5 years, I've had about 10 plus x-rays, about 4 MRIs, 2 cortisone injections, a PRP injection, 4 different types of medications, 4 canes that were more so prescribed by myself, but then I went back and checked with my doctor that if it was a good idea to be using a cane, and he was like, "Yeah, that's actually a pretty good idea as long as it's helping you." And I have 4 because 2 are collapsible and 1 has blue butterflies on it. You gotta have variety. 3 separate rounds of physical therapy amounting into probably 2+ years of time and thousands of dollars of medical bills. When it came to other treatment options, surgery was put on the table. The idea of putting me on the table was put on the table. I always think that's funny. I make jokes to cope. Now, what would it be affecting? Would it be surgery on my knees? Would it be surgery on my hips? I don't honestly know. The injections were always meant for my knees, but were done on my hips, so I don't know where it would happen or who it would happen to. And the idea was always, if I fix my knees, it might fix my hips. So surgery would probably be for the whole kit and caboodle. It doesn't have a great success rate, and even if it was successful, it wouldn't make a huge impact. Chapter 3, my last 5 years. Put on your swimming trunks because it's about to get deep. I don't know, we're getting into it, folks. So if you weren't ready, it's time to be ready now. Over the last 5 years, I've been introduced to the term invisible disability. When it comes to myself, or my current state, or myself over the last 5 years, I now consider myself to be somebody with an invisible disability. The idea of an invisible disability is something that affects you or has an impact on your life that maybe others can't visually see. So in my case, I look like an able-bodied person, and for the most part I am. However, I deal with chronic hip and knee pain that plagues me from day to day, that sometimes impacts my daily routine and sometimes impacts my abilities and what I can or cannot do. Even when I was in the point of my life where I was walking with my cane, which that period lasted probably a little less than a year for the everyday basis, I didn't look like someone who needed to walk with a cane. That's a whole other issue within itself, but I did not look like what society thought a person who walked with a cane looked like. I have no scars on my knees or on my hips, and my body does not differ from what society deems as normal. So it is common to assume that I have nothing that is physically impacting me. I am young and relatively healthy. However, I have this thing that plagues me physically nearly every day of my life. I think the hardest thing about getting into this accident and having all these physical issues is that I look okay, and that a lot of days vary from others. That some days I'm better than others. I don't know when I'm going to have a bad day. I don't know when I'm gonna be getting a whole bunch of knee pain. Some days I do wake up and I go, today's not gonna be a good day. And some days are good days that suddenly send shooting pains down my leg for no good reason. I now understand things that will cause me pain, like the next day or later in the day. However, there are still things that I can't predict. Like driving in my car, I've had this happen so many times where I'll suddenly just get like a sharp pain in my hip and it'll feel like somebody's turning a knife in me, and all I can do is pull over on the side of the road and cry because there's nothing I can do to make it better. That's kind of my life, is not knowing if I'm just going to be in excruciating pain at any moment or not. And then I can't anticipate for having a bad day, because then what if I have a good day and I didn't take that opportunity to use my good leg day? That doesn't really make sense, but yeah. Having this invisible injury brings forth a lot of judgment. Judging me when I walk with my cane, when I go a day without my cane, that I still choose to dance even though I have these injuries, and judging me when I need to take the elevator instead of the stairs, or even when I need to take more breaks than my peers. I am the only one, and my doctor to a certain extent, that understands what I am going through, because it's just a weird situation. From the beginning, nobody's been able to put a finger on what's wrong with me, and it doesn't seem like there's going to be a cure or much treatment I can do to set me back to the day before my accident. I will never be the same as the day before my accident. I am the only one who understands what I can or cannot do. The last 5 years have been filled with people telling me what I cannot do. I understand that most of it is from a place of caring, but to have somebody who doesn't understand my abilities scold me like a child when I choose to do something is unbelievably frustrating and tiring. It's tiring. It's exhausting. I feel like I have to prove myself to make somebody believe that I can actually do what I say I can do. And then there's the other side of the coin of me feeling like I have to prove the fact that I'm actually injured. It's just a funny double-sided coin of, I promise I can do things, but also believe me when I say I'm hurting. I've been left out of social gatherings because somebody didn't invite me because I assumed you couldn't do it. And I've even been denied admission into a class because I said one too many words and the teacher heard all she needed to hear and decided that, mind you, this was the first time I was meeting her, that I was unable to fill the physical duties of the class. And that's devastating. And that happened last year. And it's been 4 damn years at that point. It's been 5 years. And I was destroyed after that meeting. Because even though it wasn't the days around my accident, it wasn't the first year, I was still experiencing that. I hate to say the word discrimination because I feel like that, yeah, discrimination, I don't know. She made the call for me and she wasn't gonna let me try. Strangers telling me throughout the world that I'm too young for a cane or I'm too young to be having that pain. First of all, young people can be hurt. Young people can have the same ailments as old people. But secondly, that doesn't make me better. That doesn't fix me. And it freaking hurts. And those are some of the words that I heard in my head when I was crying myself to sleep. You are too young for a cane. You shouldn't be like this. Once again, I get it's all coming from a good place, but it still sucks to hear. It really does. Yeah, I'm too young for a cane, and I wish every day of my life that I was not in the situation that I am in now. But that's not how things work. The glares that I would get from people when I walked with my cane will be forever etched into my mind. The looks that I can't describe with any other word besides nasty will be something I'll never forget. Why are you glaring at somebody with a cane? Did you believe I didn't use it? Were you thinking that I was using it for sympathy? What person wants to voluntarily carry around an ugly cane, just doing shopping around the mall by herself? I don't get the logic behind it, but regardless, that's probably what they were thinking, because I don't know how they would get such nasty looks. Those glares and dirty looks and comments are things that make me anxious the few days now, because I'm lucky that I don't have to use my cane as much as I did once, but those are the things that make me anxious reaching for my cane. Last year, I actually had to use my cane towards the end of the school year, and I remember having a panic attack about it and crying profusely because I was so scared that these new people in my life who didn't know my story had never seen me with a cane, and I was going to suddenly show up with a cane, and then I was going to get all these judgmental looks from my peers and my new friends, and that sucked. I remember getting to school and just going into my friend's arms and bawling my eyes out because I was so scared for the day ahead of me. I didn't know what it would hold. Spoiler alert, it went really well. Everybody was really nice and nobody made a big deal about it, and I'm just thankful that my campus was a place where a lot of positive people were. Having to prove myself and prove that I'm not lying or milking my injury has been a consistent theme throughout these last 5 years. I've often felt guilt about being transparent with my injury. I felt that if I was honest with people about my pain, people would think I was faking it or just trying to get attention. If I said my knees were hurting and then I went to dance rehearsal, somebody would think I was lying or exaggerating. If I walked around fine but then asked a professor to sit in the chair when everybody else had to sit crisscross on the floor, I was asking for special treatment or trying to bring attention to myself or be special. I've constantly battled with myself if I was going to tell somebody how I was feeling that day, because if I tell somebody, first of all, I'm putting that weight on them and it's my cross to bear, but if I tell somebody, they can't make it better, so what's the point of sharing it when I can just keep it inside and not have the judgment from the world around me? There were days, and are still days, that my injury eats me up from the inside because that's where I keep all my pain. People seeing a person who looked physically able get out of a car with a disabled parking placard probably thought very nasty things about me without knowing my story, including the cop who tried to get me for what he thought was using my grandmother's parking placard, but joke's on him, it was actually for me, and I loved the look on his face when I handed over my proper documentation to prove that it was indeed my parking placard. These are all things that have come with the territory. For the record, I would have given up that parking spot to go back to what my normal was before the day of my accident, but I'll never go back there. I would walk a mile to get into Walmart if that means I could never have pain again, but once again, that's not how that works. For me to not use my cane because I'd rather choose to be in pain silently than to get judgment from others, these are things that have become normal to me. I've experienced more anger in the last 5 years than I think I have my entire life. Of course, there were other things than just my accident that have happened over the last 5 years, but being angry at this whole situation has definitely been present. Can't think of another way to put that. I felt angry at my situation, that some days I would be in pain, and anger that some days I wouldn't, for no good reason. Angry that I had to use my cane, angry that I had to go to so many doctor's visits so early in the morning, get so many painful treatments, go to physical therapy every week. I was angry about the fact that there were people who wouldn't understand my pain, and then there were days that I would keep my pain inside, and I was angry about that too. I was filled with anger when people told me what I could or could not do, or what I should or what I should not do. Angry at the unsolicited medical advice I received from, you should try medical marijuana, you should do yoga, try acupuncture, you should stop dancing, try this special water, never mind this type of acupuncture. Are you sure it doesn't have side effects? You should try CBD oil. Have you tried massage therapy? My grandma tried this, to everything else under the sun. Not only is unsolicited medical advice very frustrating, but but especially when your doctor is the best in his field and he's still trying to figure out what to do with you. Besides the physical and mental toll that this accident has taken on me, let's throw a legal case on there. And let me tell you, a legal suit is not as fun as TV might make it seem, if TV makes it seem fun at all. It's not interesting. It's not great. It sucks. I had people from the other side scrubbing all of my social media, pulling all of my medical records for my entire life, doing anything that they could to prove that I was wrong, that I was a bad person, that I was lying. The last 5 years have involved going to meetings, having phone calls at any point of the day, at any time that I have to answer, signing paperwork, going to different legal offices here and far and wide, signing more paperwork, meeting a new paralegal for my case about every 6 to 8 months. Frankly, dealing with a ton of typical jerk type lawyers, requests from my entire theatrical history at my college, requests for interviews and people to prove my character, and scrubbing of all of my social media and including my YouTube videos to try to prove that I was lying or faking it or a bad person in some way. Anything that the other party could do to stretch out the process or use against me in court in some way was just a lot to deal with over the last 5 years. One of my personal favorites that my lawyer and I have is when the other party tried to claim that I wasn't injured because I went to Disney World for my 21st birthday, as if people with disabilities cannot go to Disney World. I just worked in Walt Disney World for 4 months. I know damn well that any person of any type of background, ability, or anything is welcome into the Disney parks. So that was a load of bull. There was a point towards the end that I wasn't allowed to speak with anybody at my former school, including one of my professors who I'm really close with in my personal life, because he was subpoenaed to have a pretty much like a hearing that was him reporting on my injury and me as a person, and I can't remember what they called it, but it was hard to not be able to talk to anyone at the school or go to the school for the sake of jeopardizing the case. They also had a subpoena for the school to go through their archives of photos of all the shows that I've been in and submit any photo that I was in to these other people, which my lawyer just said was a last-ditch effort to waste time. That didn't work. But it's all very stressful because, like I said before, this was my cross to bear and now other people were getting involved. So, lawsuits, they suck. From day one, everyone has said, including the first cop that arrived on the scene, that it was a pretty open and shut case. However, it doesn't make all the nonsense I had to deal with, especially from the other side, any easier to deal with. The last 5 years have been very tough and very trying. I've proven to myself and the world how resilient I am. The pain I've been through, both emotionally and physically, is unlike anything I'd ever experienced before. I've definitely noticed that I'm a more rough person than I was before, just because when you can see the cruelty of the world and then the next day see the world without judgment and those dirty, nasty looks is a lot. It can make you kind of jaded. However, along with that, I've also seen such support and kindness through all the people in my life. From my friends not blinking an eye when I need to take an extra break, or when I pull out my cane in the middle of the day, when they would protect me from the harshness of the world and not assume what my abilities were. Professors who would trust me when I said I was okay, but then would also let me know it was okay to not be okay. Offering accommodations for costumes, but not forcing anything on me. Having my new friends that would see I was suddenly using a cane and just asking, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yes, trust me," and they actually trusted me. They didn't make it a big deal. They just took it as it was and moved on. Or even something as simple as opening the circle to me in my chair when everybody's gathered sitting on the floor. Or even when a customer at my previous job waited until I got off work so he could pray for me in my healing. I'm not religious in any way, but it brought me to tears because it came from such a kind place in his heart. The last 5 years has really helped show me who my real friends are, who the good people are around me, and that I am really strong to survive through all of this. The final chapter, where I am now. The lawsuit is over. It settled in March of 2019. We definitely didn't expect it. We had court dates set and everything, and we ended up being able to cancel them, which is nice. Not having to go to court is nice. Before you ask how much money I got, one, it wasn't enough to go buy myself and my mom a Tesla, if that's what you're wondering, but I paid off my medical bills and paid off a little bit of debt, and that's all you need to know. No, I did not get free internet for life, like everybody and their mother joked about, just because it was a Comcast truck. They did not hook it up. The reason I cried at my settlement conference experience was that such a huge chapter of my life was over, yet it wasn't. The legalities and the paperwork and the having to run out of the room to take a phone call and coming back and saying, oh, I'm sorry, it was my lawyer, which felt very official, by the way. That was all done, but the pain that it was based under was still there. I still have knee and hip pain, and I probably will for the rest of my days. I'm definitely better than when this all started, which I'm so thankful for. I'm not walking with my cane every day like I was 3+ years ago, but that doesn't change the fact that this pain is still with me. Some days are better than others. A lot of days are better than others, thankfully. But I still keep my cane in my car, and I bring it with me when I go on trips, especially if I'm going somewhere that's gonna be cold, because I just never know. If you're someone who's met me in the last couple of years, especially since I haven't used my cane much, I just want you to know that just because I don't talk about it doesn't mean it's not still there. I'm not fixed or healed by any means, which is sad to say. But I always try to remind myself I'm better than I have been, and I'm thankful for that. If I ever have to visit my doctor, I would have to pay out of pocket, because since we started our relationship in a lawsuit, I can't connect my insurance. So that's something else that worries me a lot, knowing how much my injury varies and has varied over the last 5 years. That what if I need to go back and I can't afford it and this lawsuit is over, and so I can't go back to the doctors, and I can't think that the medical bills are just going to add into the lawsuit. It's done. That book is closed. The last time I went to my physical therapist, she pretty much said, like, there's nothing else I can really do for you. Just keep doing what I've taught you, and that can help, but I don't know if it'll ever make it 100% better, which is a little disheartening, but I try not to get discouraged. I do my exercises and my stretches, and I work out, and I notice that it helps a lot. Like, I think a year and a half ago was the first time that I ran a mile since my accident, and I cried because I never thought I'd be able to do that again. And now every time I go to the gym, I try to run a mile, but obviously some days are different than others, and some days I can't run that mile and I get frustrated, and then some days I can run 2 miles and I get really happy. It's all about taking it day by day. I have trouble with my pride from time to time, which is based out of a fear of judgment. There are definitely things that I don't sit out of that I should, and there are times where I look at my cane and choose not to grab it because of fear of judgment. Judgment, I've probably said 100 times through this video, but that's what it is. It's something that I battle with and I work on, and I just try to remember that I know what's best for me. And if what's best for me randomly in the middle of the week, and I know it'll help me to walk with my cane, then damn it, I'll grab my cane. And if I believe I can go without it, then I'll go without it. But I try really hard to let it be a decision that I make instead of a decision that my fear makes, if that makes sense. Like I said, I don't need my cane every day, and that is an immense improvement from just a couple of years ago. I push myself physically, but I know my limits, and I let myself know it's okay if I need a break when somebody else does it. Because that's my body and my reality, and what they're doing is their body and their reality, and we are not the same person, so I can't expect the same thing. At the end of the day, I just try not to expect anything from my body because it varies so much, and I'm just thankful to be alive. Because had my car been any smaller, that accident could have and would have killed me. But I was driving a big beefy SUV, and it saved my life. I make jokes about the whole situation a lot because I'd rather laugh than cry, and I love to make people feel uncomfortable. But there's no use in crying because it's not going to make the situation any better, so I may as well have a laugh. But yet, I let myself cry when I need to. I've been looking down at my iPad because I've just had like pages of stuff written down, and I've gotten to the end of the pages, but I don't know what else to say. This is such a huge part of me that I wish wasn't, but it is, and I accept that, and I know that going through all this, I've learned so much about me as a person, and like I said before, I've learned of how much of a strong badass I am. Frankly, if I'm gonna pat myself on the back, I'm happy with where I'm at today, and I know that's the things I don't know if I'll be better. Yeah, I don't know what to say anymore. I guess I'll just end it with saying thank you if you're somebody in my life who has supported me through all this. I thank you, because it has been a very tough ride, And I've tried to go through a lot of it alone because I know how much it sucks and I don't want to put that weight or burden on anybody else. But for the people who shook me by the shoulders and let me know it was okay to share this with you and them and all that stuff, thank you. You know who you are. And I hope that me sharing this story will open people's eyes to a world that they might not have known. Maybe people will be less judgmental, more accepting. I don't know. I guess if there's any takeaway from me just telling this story I've always wanted to tell in its full capacity, and there might be people who are really close to me in my life who don't know anything about this or don't know it to the depths that I've explained it. I don't know. I guess things that I've always appreciated were when people accepted what I said as truth, when people looked out for me but didn't assume my abilities, and for people who helped when I asked for it, but not forcing their help onto me. Those have been some of the most important things throughout all this. I'm just glad to finally share this. Oh, this is so stupid. Anyway, thanks for listening, and thanks for hearing me tell this, because it's, like I said, it's a huge part of me, and it will forever be a huge part of me. And besides, obviously, the whole physical stuff and the mental toll and the PTSD I've been left with, I'll carry this with me forever. And now there is this documentation on the internet to where the next time somebody goes, what's the story behind this, instead of giving them my 30-second elevator pitch, I can send them a link to my channel. And I also just want to document it for myself, because there are pieces of the story that occasionally I lose. I forget it's been 5 years, and the day I'm posting this video is my 5-year anniversary. So this is really important to me. Thanks for your time. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your support over these last 5 years. Stay beautiful. Have a marvelous day. Fucking hell. Stop crying. Stop crying. Stay beautiful. Have a marvelous day. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Oh, jeez.